Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and...
Adam,
Hey, Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, although every time that you introduce the show, I get very self-conscious about when I should say my name.
Just let it come out. Don't think about it,
It's
Just let
hard
it...
to say your own name.
Is it?
I mean, Phil, you've met me. I'm very awkward when I first meet someone. The whole, this is my name, this is what I do routine. No good
Right.
at that.
I mean, I think we should, we can just bust norms like that. If that's one thing we've learned. It's okay just to break norms, so maybe think
Okay.
about that.
Hello.
Yeah.
Instead of telling you my name, I want to tell you that my favorite color is blue. And I've never been to South America.
Hey, those some interesting facts. Those some interesting facts. That'd be nice to know.
All right. Well, great.
Yeah. So if you want to share your favorite color and places you've never been, you can get in contact with us through Instagram.
I'm sorry. I just need to pause for a moment and bask in the wonder that was that segue.
Yeah, I'm becoming a pro at this. I think
you are.
I'm figuring it out.
Straight, my friend. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did mean to interrupt because I needed to recognize how brilliant that was.
Thank you. So if you would like to get in contact with us, and we would love to hear from you, please reach out to us. You can share a voice message, as several of our listeners have, through Anchor. You can also get in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at WSRTwPA, and also on YouTube by the name of our podcast. We should have recorded that with Phil and Adam. And we do have comments this week.
Comments plural?
Oh, I should say comment. I don't know. Do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, I do have one, and we are going to be able to actually listen to the comment this time. So let's listen to this comment.
I really loved this episode. Yes, it was a little bit unfiltered, but I really prefer that kind of commentary in my life. But both of you, I think, really summed up how the general population, not just the Democrats or the people on the left, but really that feeling of tired and exhaust that everyone is feeling regarding the election and, waiting to see who's going to be our next president. It's really exhausting just sitting here and seeing who is going to be our leader. And also, it's, for me personally, it's exhausting to see that so many people want 4 more years of what we were going through and 4 more years of, the mishandling of the pandemic, and that they're okay with that. So it was really nice to hear the perspective of you guys and how it's affecting you guys personally.
And that was Eric Severson. I was thinking Silverman, but I'm like, I don't think that's the right last name.
Thank you, Eric Severson.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Yeah, I feel like just with, and maybe we'll talk more about this with our guests. I want to acknowledge our guests that just with once we got a result, no matter how you felt about it on Saturday, I think I was able to kind of take a breath, after getting that result. And so now the next phase.
Yeah.
So,
well, Phil, you've alluded to their presence with us.
Who
is joining us today for our very first 4-person episode?
So we have the pastor, and are you an assistant pastor, Phil? The assistant pastor of Park Road Presbyterian Church. They are my pastors, actually. I've been when Wendy found the church, or maybe we found it together. She started attending, and I would come visit when I would come visit her. and TJ actually officiated at our wedding. So, hello, gentlemen, and welcome.
Thanks for being here, guys. It's great great to have you for our very first episode with not one but two guests.
So I have a little bio I'm going to share with about TJ. Maybe we get a little bio about Phil, maybe conversationally. So TJ, as I said before, has been the pastor of Park Road since 1994. He is from Long Island, New York. I don't know. Was that in the city, or were you further out on the island?
Yes, we were further out on the island.
Okay, in Long
Suffolk
Island. Okay, and his family decided to move to Stewart when he was 12. He's graduated from Southeastern College of the Assemblies of God and Columbia International Seminary. He is married to his high school sweetheart, Michelle, who's better known as Missy, and Theo. Not Theo. The Campos have three grown children: Hannah, Theo, and Maddie, and a grandson, Owen. And Owen just had a birthday. I noticed
That's correct. On the 8th, he turned 2 years old.
Oh,
wow. Well, that's great. Yeah. It was nice. We had lunch with you all a few weeks ago, and so that was really nice to do and to see them all again. Phil, do you want to share? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Phil Letizia. I am born and raised here in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area, and I grew up the son of a minister, a Presbyterian pastor. And so grew up in the church and eventually felt called to ministry. So I attended Palm Beach Atlantic University in West Palm Beach, and then went on to seminary in Orlando at Reformed Theological Seminary.
Okay.
And have been in various ministry roles throughout the years. I was a music minister for quite a long time, and then for about 5 years I was a church planter.
Okay.
And just recently, about a year and a half ago, came on staff here at Park Road. I'd known TJ for a long time, for about 10 years or more before that, and so came on staff about a year and a half ago. I have two children and my wife, Jenny. My two kids, Oliver is almost 9, and Jane, my daughter, is 7. And God willing, I'm going to be finishing my PhD in March of this coming year from the University of Aberdeen. So yeah, that's kind of all the boxes, I think.
Oh, yeah, great. I think you and your PhD work is kind of where we wanted to start this conversation. I should say there were like so many topics. Some of the things that we have outlined we may not touch, due to time, but I think so. Your PhD, and maybe hopefully I'm getting the gist of this right. It's primarily about serving. Ministering to people with disabilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in practical theology, so specifically kind of thinking theologically about people with profound intellectual disabilities, so people who do not have language, or people who do not have kind of the typical ways we think about intellectual ascent, or to expect a lot of intellectual growth. And so really thinking about what it means for them to be disciples of Jesus. So the project is really focused on Christian discipleship and people with profound disabilities, and how we expect someone who's profoundly disabled to fit into kind of our more evangelical ideas of what it means to follow Jesus. And by kind of exploring the ways that they follow Jesus, trying to uncover kind of new vistas for discipleship that maybe we've overlooked, or don't expect, or have not wanted to look at before.
Oh, that's a great topic. Wow. I mean, in as succinctly or not succinctly as you want, how does discipleship for the profoundly disabled look different from discipleship for the rest of us? How does it look the same?
Yeah, it's that's kind of the big question. I think first we really have to explore what we mean by following Jesus and what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, and particularly kind of looking at it from within the evangelical tradition, kind of the American Reformed evangelical tradition. So there's a lot of emphasis placed typically on coming to a place of decision, where you decide to follow Jesus. We could think of all the songs even that hint at that. Then there is a movement to some type of intellectual ascent or growth. So the more knowledge I gain of God, the more I am growing in my walk or my journey or relationship with Jesus. And then really kind of the third big move is to be able to demonstrate your discipleship through some type of practice or actions that cue to the rest of the church or the body of Christ as a whole that you are indeed a follower of Jesus. And so that's kind of the typical evangelical construct of what it means to be a disciple.
Yeah.
And so obviously all three of those things are problematic for people with profound disabilities who can't enter into what we would call a moment of decision, as Bonhoeffer even calls it, or who have the capacity for intellectual growth. Think about all the ways we think about discipleship in the church. We typically think about classes and, Christianity 101 classes and moving, through a progression of understanding. That's problematic. And then finally, an expectation of practice or actions. For a lot of people with profound disabilities, those practices or actions are going to be very marginalizing. So, through my research and reflection, I think really what I've come to embrace is that at the very bottom of what it means to follow Jesus, and the most important thing about what it means to follow Jesus, is that we have become known by God. We are adopted into his family through his adoptive love. Therefore, he knows us rather than this idea of us coming to know him. Mm-hmm. And then finally, because we live in this adoptive love, I really believe, and I'm trying to show, that kind of love is actually transformational. So love itself is what can be formational in the life of the disciple. And so it's not just an understanding or an acknowledgement or a practice. It's actually sitting within the adoptive love of God that can actually mature us, can actually grow us. And so if someone can't intellectualize what it means to follow Jesus, but they are experiencing and reflecting and giving in some amazing different way, perhaps, that only a person with profound disabilities can do, if they're giving, receiving that kind of love, then they're actually growing in their faith. They're actually growing as a disciple of Jesus. And so I think for us, that's very important, because it brings us, those that are more maybe neurotypical, it brings us back to understanding that it is first the love of God that calls us, and then secondly, living within that love is where we're actually changed or maturing or being transformed, and not necessarily in the things that we come to know about God or the things that we demonstrate. So it really opens our eyes. It opens the eyes of others to say, all the ways that I thought I could recognize disciples of Jesus, maybe those aren't necessarily always the indicators, and there needs to be another way. And I think people with profound disabilities give us another way to recognize discipleship.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, TJ, I mean, as a pastor, you've been pastoring for a while. Like, how have you, maybe even just not just with people with disabilities or profound disabilities, but just pastoring any person and wherever they come from, from that type of standpoint, realizing the love that God has for us.
Phil, is this? Am I coming across clearly? Okay,
Yes.
good. Because I
Yes.
did eventually get earbuds.
Yeah.
Phil and I have a little Q&A at the end of our sermons recently because we've been on streaming, and Phil asked me this question on Sunday about what we call receptive spirituality, and I think that's kind of where Phil is going in his dissertation, or at least one aspect of it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really where our focus is, I think, as reformational Protestants, that we hold to salvation by grace alone, which is received by faith. It's a receptive spirituality. So you receive it, and we're trying to, wherever people are in their level of ability or disability, trying to get them to see that they really have nothing that God needs from us. It's like C.S. Lewis calls it in the Four Loves. It's never gift love that we give to God. It's always need love. So we come to Him with our need, and He gives us His grace. We come receptive, and He comes the giver. I think it's hard. I mentioned it on Sunday in the Q&A that I've been kind of obsessed with Martha and Mary. That little scene at the end of Luke 10, and we're all as modern South Floridians and modern Americans, we're all much more Martha-like than we know, because we're the can-do people, and even in meetings I have with elders, we kind of catch ourselves and say, "Hey, stop it!" We got to get to that place again where, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. So, we're always so quick to go into problem-solving mode, and that we can take care of the problems. And I had a last thing I'll say. I had a friend who was raising funds to go to Europe as a missionary, a church planter. He had a fundraising coach on the mission board, and he said, "So how's it going, man?" He says, the missionary says, "Oh, I have this plan, this much money is coming in, we've reached our quota for so much percent before we can leave, we have so many people praying for us, we have so many everything, all these resources." And there was a bit of silence on the phone, and then the fundraising coach says, "Man, you have it so together, you don't even really need Jesus." And so, I think that's how all of us can, as modern Americans, we tend to be like, the best thing we can be is independent, when in reality, the best thing we can be is dependent.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think, as you were saying, Phil, when a person is in that place where they have to be, I think maybe it causes us to have to rethink, like you said, what is this? Is it really is what we've called this thing sanctification? What we called it really all of what it is? I thought it was really good. I think TJ, because again, I hear you all preach, and so I can reference the sermon on Sunday. The Lord has given.
Yes.
And what that means, like even now, right? Just trusting the Lord, and the story out of Samuel, where like you said, Jonathan is like, yeah, we're here, and if they say let's come up, then the Lord is giving them to us, and if they haven't, then He hasn't, and that's all we got to go on.
Yeah.
Just gotta trust Him.
Yeah. Nothing else.
Nothing else, but yeah.
So, guys, how, TJ, you just talked about how important the concept of dependence on God and His grace is. How has your perception of that changed because of our circumstances these past number of months, since shutdowns and quarantines and physical distancing and all of that?
I think we're all tending, like they're saying, our national mental health is taking a hit, and I feel it. I think most people I talk to feel it. But I read in my readings today, Psalm 42, why are you downcast, O my soul? So when we are downcast regarding the elections, regarding the pandemic, regarding like all this fake news and false news and conspiracy theories that are swirling around, that just leave you not knowing what to even think. Those are the moments that we feel our dependency, on Jesus, and we ask our souls, why are we downcast? And then the answer comes back, hope in God, and so we kind of run back to Him.
Yeah. Phil, how has your ministry changed because of the pandemic?
Yeah, quite a bit. A couple of ways. My chief responsibility at the church is kind of overseeing all of our family ministry. So, our children's ministry, of course, is completely kind of been shelved. Our student ministry has had to do it differently. Yeah, it's kind of meant to move to more digital things. It's meant trying to find maybe some new and then maybe some old ways too of contacting people. Old ways like, a phone call. So rediscovering some of that. And then on the, on the disability front, it's been interesting because, people with disabilities, obviously, many of them may be more in the more vulnerable category when it comes to COVID. And so it really has kind of meant a complete kind of stop to a lot of the type of gatherings or events that were going around in that community. And so what's been neat is I think the work that I know our church has done, our church has really gone all in on trying to make not only our worship services, but a lot of different things accessible to people at home. But I think seeing that across the board, actually in a really unique way, I think for people with disabilities, this has been a really kind of great turn for them, because now many people, and just reading this and talking with people anecdotally even, many people who had difficulties being in a worship service or on campus at a church are able to access a worship service now much more easily. And so we're hearing kind of some early, things about how that's been very good for people with disabilities. So like anything, I mean, this is revealing the good, the bad. It's opening new opportunities, and it's completely shutting down other things. I think the hardest part is just not knowing, when it's going to change or if it's going to change. Any other, we live in South Florida. We just went through another, tropical storm, hurricane. When you go through a storm, you know that it's going to end, or when they tell you it's going to end, and but with this, nobody knows. Nobody knows when it's going to change or end, and so I think that's been the hardest part. I think we sent out a big weekly email communication, and I think when we first sent it out regarding the coronavirus, we labeled it like coronavirus update number 1. And I think now every Friday, now it's like almost 40, I think, 30, like number 39 or 4. It's just, it's crazy, So, I mean, back on number 4 or 5, we would have never thought, I didn't think it was going to be 40, Right. Yeah. So, and so who knows? So I think that's been the hardest part, is just really getting comfortable that this may last a very long time.
Yeah.
Adam, could I ask, are you teaching in-person classes in Rochester?
Yeah. We've been very fortunate here to be at the collegiate level, face-to-face, 5 days a week. our public schools, K through 12, mostly are doing some form of hybrid where students are in the building for 2 days a week and remote the other 3. But I mean, cases are going up here like they're going up almost everywhere. So we've got to make it through Thanksgiving, send the students home, and finish the semester online, which we've been planning to do all along. So, guys, speaking of current circumstances, we just experienced a really divisive election. I'll just tell you a little bit about my church. A little kind of hokey, I've got to say, but I love my church anyway. My Reformed church here in Rochester, for Reformation Day, the sermon was the doctrine of election. And for the Sunday after the election, the sermon was the doctrine of elections, plural. So...
I think TJ actually would really like that. I mean, I think you're really speaking his language right now, actually.
Perfect. So, despite it being a bit on the nose, the second sermon, referring to human elections, really was from Psalm 146 and referred to how we cannot put our faith in earthly princes. And I think, at least in my context here, my pastor was speaking to a congregation full of people who voted in different ways. I think probably, it would be very difficult for me to say that there would be a clear winner if the presidential election were determined by the congregants at Rochester Christian Reformed Church. So for you in your context, what is it like ministering to people who may agree with one another theologically, but disagree with one another politically? TJ is getting, you're getting the signal.
Right.
But this is yours.
I did not preach a sermon on the elections. I would preach a sermon on election, but I wouldn't touch that. But I happen to notice that the Puritans had so many what they called occasional sermons, and one of them was on election day. And so I wasn't as gutsy as they were, I guess. But we have people. We're a browning congregation. Our overall complexion is getting a little browner. Trying to keep up with our neighborhood, which we haven't. Both Phils and I have talked about that, but so sure, we have people all over the board, and I didn't really touch it, but there are things in the gospel that could go both ways. So I think my main concern at this point is to try to foster and engender love between people who are politically on different sides of the aisle, but in worship are literally sitting next to each other.
Yes.
And there's been a little bitterness, I think, that's come out, and things that Trump has said that may or may not have been racist, but have been taken that way. Certain things I think that just plain were racist that were taken that way, and things on the other side too. Current conspiracy theories about the vote count and stuff like that. So right now I'm trying to be, I'm waiting in the wings for the opportunity to be a peacemaker when those opportunities present themselves, which I have a feeling they will in coming days.
Yeah. Why do you think that it is politics that divides Christians so deeply in a way that some Christians can't even fathom that a sincere believer could vote in a way different than they would.
I think my only thought on that really is that because it's the area that touches both our public, and our private life that we kind of all share in. As Americans, we kind of boast that we're, made up of, every religion or every race, we're this melting pot. And how much of that is true or not over the years, I think, all of our lives are touched by politics. And so I think it becomes that touch point that can be a flashpoint, if not careful. I think, we always are operating kind of on recency bias, in the moment we live in. But I think if you look back through, American history, that's always been the case. Politics have been, and media even, as crazy as media is now, media has always played a role in dividing. And, we had partisan newspapers 200, 300 years ago, and, people who had their message. And I think because everybody now has a smartphone, I do think it's enhanced that touch point with politics that can become a flashpoint is like a grenade now in everybody's hands because you can actually hold it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why maybe now more than 50 years ago or 60 years ago, it seems more hostile because we all have more access to it now. We all have, and we have access to whatever we want, whether it's the real time, things being said by politicians or whatnot, or it's the commentary or conspiracy or whatever, it's really at our fingertips whenever we want it. So I think, back to the idea of the church, it's just hard. It's not an easy thing. And I think, unfortunately, I don't think, Adam, your experience of the church that you're in is the typical experience. I don't think most churches are down the middle. I think most churches are pretty like 90-10 or 95-5, in one way or the other. So within those churches that are more split, I think it's hard because there's tension, but there's opportunity, where that tension is to as TJ said, kind of lean into harder conversations and let the gospel go to work there. Whereas in a, homogenous church politically, you're going to have your blind spots that probably stay that way when it comes to politics.
If I wonder if we could maybe lean just a little bit more into this, not so much in a political way. And I want to say this, I realize that, this is a very vulnerable place. We don't have a very big audience. So this is probably, whatever you say is probably not going to be on CNN tonight or Fox News. but I get it. Like the first few.
You see what's happening here, how Philip lured us in, Phil. And now he's trying to tell us, take your time, go ahead, and elaborate on these things. No one's going to hear.
No. I know I'm speaking from my own experience. I really, like the first few times I'm like, do I really want to say this? Do I really want to say that? And you all have been, you're a pastor, so you've been doing this. You've taken the heat. I'm pretty sure you could tell me stories about ways people have not liked the things you've said to them. But my desire, and I don't know, I'm naive. I'm younger than both of you with less experience. But my desire is that the church could be And I guess it probably is harder in a more homogenous church, but could be this place of unity or healing, or I don't know. I don't like. The one thing that I'm thinking about is that we can get so focused on the nation that we forget about the people, right? And that Jesus is coming back to establish his own kingdom, right? Or that his kingdom is already established. He's not coming back to become the president of the United States. So it is more about people than it is about the nation. And so let me get to my question. Like, how can the gospel kind of help to to kind of heal where we're so focused more on the politics versus the humanity and the people? I don't know if my question makes sense. I can't.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I think we should, remind ourselves and remind other people, the gospel only comes to the broken and humble. So it goes to everyone, but it's only received by the gospel, by the broken and humble. And, this kind of ties back into Phil's dissertation, even, that people with profound disabilities are broken and humble, So, and needy, So if we can just get needy and recognize our need, then I'm not going to move in self-righteousness towards someone on the other side of the aisle and say, I'm not going to say things like, I don't see how in the world a person could vote for blank. Because I do. I mean, of course I can. I can see it from both sides, and I have to be broken and humble enough to say, what do I know? The only thing I really know is Christ and him crucified. And after that, it's a little bit of guesswork, to try to know, who to vote for, what kind of car to buy, whatever. And again, even there, I'm just needy. I'm asking people's advice for help. I'm asking for, counsel, and so that's. I think there's resources in the gospel that can generate love in us toward those with whom we disagree. It's kind of a Tim Keller thing to say.
Yeah, I think the gospel is always challenging our places of certainty, and so what are we certain on as Christians? We're certain on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, his promise to come again. But beyond that, if you find yourself being very, 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 very certain on something, to me, I think that can easily become a place of idolatry. I'm not talking necessarily about, this is not a critique about expertise, because experts obviously can become very certain on how things work and, things that are important and they're good for the world and good for humanity. So, but when it comes to things like politics, and being so certain that this candidate or this side is the right side or the right candidate, I think just has potential to be, a place of idolatry. And I think that's where I think we want to just encourage people to, you can have your convictions, you can have your political conclusions, and vote your candidate and all that, but do it with a little bit of room to see the other side and a little bit of room to maybe say, I'm not 100% certain that everything is buttoned up on my side. So I think that's an easy way for us as pastors to push on people who maybe are slipping into that completely certain, type of mentality. And then I think, always when you're talking with somebody who you disagree with, trying to find the part that you can affirm, in a conversation. So the thing that that they're going to affirm, that you can affirm and say, this is a good thing. I'm glad that you're it's good that you're passionate about what happens to our community and our country and all of that. And I about that position, I applaud and affirm that. But then to be able to see that there are things that they can affirm or applaud on the other side as well, I think is really necessary. And that's usually the part that is harder for people.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Phil Woodard, you and I texted the other night, and I said something about probably the next president's going to have little effect directly on my life, but local politics too. And I think when we get to local politics, we move from issues to people. Because we're in this community. We're incarnated in this community. The other day, I turned on our water. Adam, you don't know this, but we've been having an unbelievable amount of rain. I mean, people in our office today, I was just like freaking out. This has to end. Phil Woodard, you must be freaking out coming from another part of the country. But anyway, it's been raining so much. So the other day, I was in the bathroom and turned on the water, and yellow water came out of the faucet. I collected it in my sink, and I took a picture of it. And then I went on my phone. I went on Hollywood, Florida Water Department, and I found an email address for the director. And I said, "Dear Mr. Gallup, I know you would want to know this because you love the city like I do. There, our water is yellow, and maybe it means a water main break in our neighborhood or whatever. And I thought you'd want to know this." I got home from work, and at 6 o'clock, there's a knock on the door, and it's the guys from the water department.
Right.
I mean, Adam, this is a city of 144,000 people.
Yeah.
And they said, "We're here to check your water." And I was just completely blown away. And then I wrote a letter afterward to Mr. Gallup again, and I said, "This is just a reminder to me that, like someone has said, all politics is local." Mm-hmm. And whoever this director is, he deserves to be there. He's the guy we want there, and we can probably have much more impact directly on the welfare of people if we're more focused on local politics. And I'm, mea culpa. I'm not. I don't know, who our city commissioners are, but I should. That's really where change can take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you also shared with me a podcast, some other people commenting on the election, and I thought that there was some very good thoughts that they were sharing about how to, as you were saying, Phil, not go so far to the right or so far to the left in the demonization of others, and I think that is where you have to be really careful. I mean, how much we laugh at the other side, maybe is kind of in our context. I'm guilty of that. But yeah, I also with that, and I agree with you. I think if we spent more time on our local politics, that would be better for us.
And you wanted to go meet with one of our elected officials with me. We didn't do it, but there's still time.
Yeah, no, definitely still want to do that because I agree with you that it's we need to be involved. I think that's the if there was something else, just the importance of being involved. Not so much trusting in it, but being involved. Like that. We have a representative government, and they represent us. And I think that was a thought that I've been thinking about, the whole idea of ruling as politicians and having power. I mean, I was taught in school that, this is a government for the people, by the people, that the politicians are supposed to serve us and not the other way around. We're not their subjects. They are our subjects. And so I think even that whole idea, really trying to come back to that, are you really benefiting and better in enabling people to flourish? Yeah. How are we doing on time, Adam? You're usually the timekeeper.
Let's look here. We have. I don't know. I can't get my phone unlocked. Oh, we're at 46 minutes, Phil. So maybe we'd better move into final segments. But before we do, guys, I mean, this is your opportunity. Our giant audience.
Right.
Is there anything you need to tell the world and get off your chest? Phil?
Oh man, gosh, that's a great question. I don't know. I think I'm doing all right. The one thought I've had, because it's been such a pressing issue for everyone in the last 10 months, and it's been an issue for us as a family. My daughter is 7 and she has Down syndrome, and because of the pandemic, obviously we've had to do school at home. And obviously it's just it's a giant, nightmare for a lot of kids to do school at home. And it's been difficult for her, particularly because of all the helps that she needs. And even though the school is back in session now, they're not able to do what they were doing, yet. So she's had to remain at home. So I just think this is a fascinating time right now for the whole question around education when it comes to distance, virtual. We're talking about the church all of a sudden going digital, and that being positive in a lot of ways. But then as education seems to not be having a positive experience. And so I think this is really going to be, this is the largest case study that anybody could ever have. The whole world is going, so we're going to really know, we're going to find out, I think, for the next generation, if this is going to work or not.
Right.
And so I think I'm really interested in that. And we're, like I said, you're typically interested in the things that you or your family are going through. So to me, that I don't really have the answer yet. So it's going to be, really interesting to see how we move forward in the next couple of years, evaluating all these kids and how we go forward in education.
Yes. There's going to be so much research based on this year. And so, I think, we're going to have a generation of children who are unique in some way. And we can say, those were the pandemic babies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How about you, TJ? Anything that you think the world needs to hear?
We say it at our church all the time, but cheer up. You're much worse off than you think. And in the gospel, you're much more secure, cherished, and significant than you've ever imagined. So that's a good thought.
Amen. Yes.
Yes.
Well, guys, we end our podcast every week with 2 final recurring segments. The first is Current Events Corner. So you can choose to tell us a current event that's on your mind or not. That's an option too. And then the second is What Did We Learn? Where we just briefly say, this is going to stick with me. I'm going to be thinking about this from our conversation. I'll be thinking about this for a little bit. So, Phil Woodard, do you want to get us started?
I guess I will. I was trying to just narrow down one, but so we have been, as most of our listeners should know, is that we're both educators and we are both teaching in person and a little bit hybrid. And so I'm really thankful that I'm teaching our students in person, even though it is very limited. I had just a student this week. I think like being aware of their like emotional state and what's going on, even with like the weather and all that, I think that just added another type of stress on them, on our students this week that they may not be able to talk about. But I had a student who was saying to me, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. And I said to them, that once you start doing the activity, you enjoy it. And they said back to me, you're right. And so, they said back to me, you're right. That's true. And so I said to them, well, come on, let's just try it. Let's try to do this. And so, that was, that's that. Every time I think about that moment this week, it makes me smile. So,
That's fun.
yeah.
How about the other Phil?
So reset the question for me again.
Is there a current event that's sticking with you this week more than the others? Phil Woodard he kind of copped out and didn't give us a current event at all. He was just like, here's something in my life that's a cute story.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's hard this week, current event, not to focus on what's happening nationally. And I think my concern that I know TJ and I have talked about and is just how many people, and I think a lot of Christians right now, that are really struggling with just being wise about what they can trust or not. And it just seems like there's so many people that are really given right now to want to chase, whatever you want to call it, conspiracy, or they want to be on the inside of knowing something that other people don't know. So to me, I just think that's such a strange thing for Christians to be really given to. I'm sure it's not necessarily new. I'm sure that's Christians have been erring and going in those directions for many years, but I just struggle with that. The struggle with that desire to kind of want to be chasing kind of something that may be true, to hope that it's true when it may not be. And so I don't think that's really like a political statement. I think that's just a kind of watching out at your people in the church and kind of see what's kind of driving their attention right now. And so I think that's a current event that the whole world, I think, at least in the United States, we're living with at the moment, and that I think kind of has my attention.
Yeah. TJ?
Here's my current event. I'm gonna give you the answer, then you guys are gonna give me the question.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is, so sad.
Yeah, and what a great guy. Someone's kind of put him up there with Fred Rogers. He just plugged away this very fun educational thing. Just did it with such class, and it's very sad to see Alex Trebek go. So it's kind of. In fact, Phil came into my office and told me about it. So.
Oh yeah. I understand his final episode is going to air on Christmas Day.
Is that right?
Oh,
How about that?
Wow.
Yeah. Great.
Looking forward to that.
Class act.
Yeah, for sure. My current event, actually, Phil, I'm right there with you. I think I have been shocked this week at people I know and love who will who believe that the world is who believe that the entire media establishment has conspired together to undermine our elections, and that I did not realize that I knew people like that. I thought, those were the forgive me, crazies on television, not family members. So I just, I am discouraged by people's connection to at least the reality that I perceive. So, Phil Woodard, what did you learn this week?
I think just to stay with the theme on the election, our elections. We both what Phil and TJ was saying about the humility, trying to find the commonality with people that we disagree with. That's something that I've also been thinking about, and so it was nice to hear that kind of capsulized in a way. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I'm going to be a little silly, and I'm just going to say that, Phil, you taught me a new word that I'm going to use more often, neurotypical. I like that word a lot. For us neurotypicals, that's a good word to know. So thank you for teaching me a new word.
All right.
Yeah. Do either of you guys want to share something that you've learned from this podcast? We did most of the learning, I think.
Well, I'll just say that what I learned was that Adam is completely ignorant of the power of the Illuminati right now, that you're just...
I am.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
No. I'm sorry.
I mean, the Trilateral Commission is all around us, and we have to understand that.
I literally this week had a very dear friend tell me that it is the powers, like the forces of evil have aligned just like in Star Wars. And that people like him who are sharing these either unsubstantiated or completely debunked conspiracy theorists are the rebels who must stick it to the man and fight for what? I don't know. Anyway. So, yes, I am ignorant of the presence of the empire among us.
I learned that I really don't want to work with TJ anymore.
No. I know. I learned that that you can have really good conversations around these topics, and it's fine. There's nothing I don't think to be afraid of or scared of. I think we build it up more than we realize, and so when you actually get into conversation with people face to face, at least, it usually tones down. So I just kind of reminded of that tonight.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, Phil Woodard, anything else for the good of the order?
No, I think. Well, I would want to extend an invitation for TJ and Phil to come back.
Anytime.
If it wasn't too rough for you all.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys very much.
Great being with you.
For this conversation.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
the conversation.
Yeah.
Great.
It's great to have these conversations. It's great to be honest but respectful and to talk about the world and the way it is. So thank you guys.
And Adam, it's getting that time of the year where you want to come down, and it's the redemptive time of the year where you can leave the cold and come on down and visit us.
It is very cold here today. But forgive me if I'll wait till I have a vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, great being with you guys.
Likewise.
Thanks.
All right. Well, then I will say bye for now.
Adios.